I pretty much lost money playing in the WNBA, if I'm being honest.
What if I told you some of the most iconic names in women's basketball faced shocking financial struggles? From Sue Bird, who took a massive pay cut, to Cheryl Swoops, who went bankrupt, to Erica Wheeler, who struggled with homelessness. These are WNBA stars who went completely broke. Let's begin with Cheryl Swoops. 3 MVP awards, 4 WNBA championships, and the nickname Female Michael Jordan should guarantee financial security for life. Yet behind the accolades and legendary status, Cheryl Swoops was fighting a devastating battle with debt that would eventually culminate in one of women's sports' most shocking bankruptcies.
I had no idea how that was going to affect me, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Because it does.
When the WNBA launched in 1997, Swoops became one of its founding superstars, but the maximum salary was just $50,000, a figure that sounds almost insulting when you consider that NBA players were averaging $2.5 million that same year. The league tried to supplement her income with a $150,000 personal service contract for promotional activities, bringing her total compensation to $200,000. But even this combined amount was a fraction of what male athletes of her caliber earned. The financial warning signs were there early, hidden beneath the surface of her public success. While she was dominating courts and becoming the face of women's basketball, behind closed doors, she was making investment decisions that would prove catastrophic. The pressure to maximize earnings beyond her meager WNBA salary led her into risky financial territory, trusting advisors and opportunities that promised quick returns on her limited income. The devastating blow came in 2004 when she filed for bankruptcy, owing over $700,000 due to bad investments and poor money management. The emotional toll was crushing for someone who had achieved everything possible in basketball, as she later revealed the mental anguish of feeling like she was letting everyone down. The public nature of her financial failure added humiliation to an already devastating situation, with media coverage focusing on her poor decisions rather than the systemic underpayment that contributed to her desperation. The numbers tell an even more tragic story. Reports suggest her total WNBA earnings were around $335,000 over her entire career. To put this in perspective, that's less than what many NBA bench players earn in a single season. The system that was supposed to celebrate her greatness had systematically underpaid her for decades, with players receiving only 10% of league revenue compared to 50% for NBA players. When Swoops attempted a comeback in 2011 at age 40 with the Tulsa Shock, whispers suggested she was earning even less than her prime years. The desperation was palpable. A legendary player in her final years, likely accepting below-market contracts just to stay in the game she loved while hoping to salvage some financial recovery. The woman who helped build the WNBA had been financially destroyed by the very league she helped create, walking away from basketball with more debt than wealth accumulated over a Hall of Fame career that should have guaranteed lifetime financial security. Now, if you thought Cheryl Swoops going broke was shocking, wait until you hear about this next WNBA player who also filed for bankruptcy but kept it completely hidden from the public eye. Delicia Milton Jones. A career spanning 17 years in professional basketball typically guarantees financial security, but the harsh economics of women's sports turned what should have been a path to wealth into a journey toward bankruptcy. Delicia Milton Jones discovered that longevity in the WNBA didn't translate to financial stability.
I've kind of been thrown a few bones, here or there. I couldn't ask for a better situation.
Those casual references to bumps masked deeper financial struggles that would eventually surface in a bankruptcy filing, one that remained largely hidden from public view, unlike other high-profile cases. When Milton Jones entered the league in 1999 as the 4th overall pick, the maximum salary was approximately $50,000, with rookies earning closer to $25,000, $30,000. Even as a top draft pick, she was starting her professional career earning less than minimum wage when calculated per hour of basketball-related work. The early financial struggles were compounded by the league's instability during its foundational years. Teams folded, contracts weren't guaranteed, and players often faced delayed payments or reduced compensation due to franchise financial difficulties. Milton Jones, like all early WNBA players, was essentially subsidizing the league's growth with her underpaid labor while taking on the financial risks of an unproven business model.
But had it not been for those moments of defeat that I didn't allow to define me or reroute my journey, I allowed it to fuel me.
Those cryptic references to moments of defeat included financial devastation that forced her into bankruptcy, though the exact details remained private. The cruel irony was that she often earned more playing overseas in Russia and Spain than in her home country, forcing her into a nomadic lifestyle of constantly traveling between continents, managing multiple contracts in different currencies, and dealing with the physical toll of year-round basketball with no off-season recovery. The overseas income, while necessary for survival, created additional financial complications. Currency fluctuations, international tax obligations, and the costs of maintaining residences in multiple countries often eroded the apparent advantages of higher overseas salaries. Managing finances across different banking systems and legal structures proved challenging for someone whose expertise was basketball, not international finance. Even as her career progressed and salaries improved slightly, the fundamental economics remained broken. Her estimated career earnings over 17 seasons totaled around $1 million, a figure that sounds substantial until you realize that's what some NBA players earn in a single month. The financial pressure was relentless, with the league's unprofitability, losing $50 million annually, ensuring that even veteran stars couldn't achieve meaningful financial security. By the 2010s, Milton Jones was likely earning $120,000 annually as a veteran, but this came after more than a decade of below-poverty wages that had already damaged her financial foundation. Her final season in 2015 with the Atlanta Dream at age 41 likely involved further salary reductions as teams prioritized younger, cheaper players. After nearly 2 decades of professional basketball, she walked away from the game financially damaged rather than financially secure. But what happens when being broke isn't about bad investments, but about never having money in the first place? This next WNBA player's financial struggles began long before she ever touched a basketball professionally. Erica Wheeler. Survival became the defining theme long before professional basketball entered the equation. Growing up with 13 people crammed into a 3-bedroom house in Miami's Liberty City, Erica Wheeler learned early that stability was a luxury she couldn't afford, a lesson that would prove prophetic during her WNBA career.
I never really had a stable house to live in. We always probably moved like every other year. So I lived with my grandmother for quite a while. 3-bedroom house, 13 kids with 13 people.
That childhood of constant relocation and overcrowding created a foundation of financial insecurity that professional basketball couldn't immediately fix. The instability went beyond housing. It meant inconsistent schooling, limited access to resources, and the constant stress of not knowing where the next meal would come from. These early experiences with poverty created a mindset of financial anxiety that would persist even after reaching professional basketball. As an undrafted free agent in 2015, she likely earned around $58,710, assuming she was fortunate enough to maintain her roster spot for a full season. The reality was much harsher, playing only 17 games with the Atlanta Dream, constantly being cut and re-signed, living paycheck to paycheck in a league that barely paid living wages.
Like, I couldn't imagine doing that right now. Like, I would be super scared, but at the time, it was just like, that's what we had to do to survive.
The word survive became devastatingly literal in 2020 when disaster struck. COVID-19 forced her to miss an entire season due to health complications, including fluid buildup around her heart. Zero WNBA income for an entire year, financial devastation for someone already living on poverty-level wages, with no family safety net to fall back on. The health complications weren't just physical. They were financially catastrophic for someone whose livelihood depended entirely on her body's ability to perform. Desperation drove her overseas to Turkey's Izmit Belediyespor and Poland's BC Polkowice, where role players can earn $10,000, $50,000 monthly. But overseas play isn't glamorous. It's survival basketball, playing year-round with no breaks, dealing with language barriers and cultural isolation, all while your body breaks down from constant competition without proper rest. Her 2019 All-Star Game MVP performance, the first for an undrafted player, should have been a financial breakthrough. Instead, it highlighted how broken the system was. Even MVP-level performances couldn't guarantee financial security in a league where excellence wasn't adequately compensated. Her eventual 2-year, $444,308 contract with Indiana represented progress, but came after years of financial struggle and health setbacks that should never have happened to a player of her caliber. Her 2025 move to Seattle represented strategic positioning for potential collective bargaining agreement improvements, but it also highlighted the ongoing uncertainty that defines WNBA careers. After nearly a decade in professional basketball, Wheeler was still chasing the financial stability that had eluded her since childhood. Think being undrafted means going broke? Well, this next WNBA player was actually drafted 3rd overall, yet still ended up so financially desperate that she chased paychecks across 4 different continents. Kayla Thornton. Draft position should determine financial trajectory, but being selected third. Overall in 2014, only guaranteed entry into a league where even top picks earn poverty wages. What followed for Kayla Thornton was a decade-long global journey of financial adaptation that would take her across 4 continents just to make ends meet. When she entered the league with the San Antonio Stars, she likely earned around $40,000, $50,000 as a rookie, barely above minimum wage for a college graduate, let alone a professional athlete with elite skills. This represented the harsh reality for role players in a league where the salary cap severely limits compensation, even for solid contributors, forcing teams to prioritize star players while leaving role players scrambling for financial survival. The financial shock of professional basketball poverty hit immediately. After years of college basketball where her needs were provided for, suddenly she was responsible for housing, transportation, food, and healthcare, on a salary that barely covered basic living expenses in major metropolitan areas where WNBA teams are located. The rookie wage scale meant she was earning less than many college graduates with far less specialized skills and public visibility. The inadequate domestic pay forced Thornton into basketball exile, playing in Italy, Australia, Israel, and Latvia, not for adventure or cultural experience, but for pure financial necessity. Overseas leagues often paid mid to high 6 figures, completely dwarfing her WNBA income and revealing the backwards economics of American women's professional basketball. But this financial improvement came at tremendous personal cost. Year-round basketball with no off-season, constant international travel, cultural and language barriers, and physical wear that threatened to shorten her career. The financial improvement came gradually, almost cruelly slowly, over nearly a decade of professional basketball. By 2024, she signed a 2-year, $413,000 extension with Minnesota, averaging $206,500 annually, representing significant progress after years of struggle, but still modest compensation for a veteran professional athlete. Even this hard-earned progress proved fragile and temporary. The harsh reality of WNBA economics became apparent when her 2025 salary with Golden State dropped to $135,520, a devastating reminder that financial security remains elusive for role players regardless of experience or productivity. This salary volatility illustrated the precarious nature of WNBA finances, where the league's 10% revenue share for players creates an environment where even productive veterans face constant uncertainty about their financial future. After 11 years in professional basketball, spanning multiple continents and dozens of contracts, she was still chasing the financial stability that should have been guaranteed years earlier. Here's a mind-blowing question. Can you actually lose money playing professional basketball? This next WNBA player, one of the greatest ever, admitted she literally lost money while playing in the league that made her famous. Sue Bird, 21 seasons, 4 championships, 12 All-Star selections, and the distinction of being drafted first overall should guarantee financial prosperity. Instead, Sue Bird's career became a masterclass in how even basketball legends can lose money playing professional sports in America.
For a large portion of my career, I was stuck at like 100, 110. I pretty much lost money playing in the WNBA, if I'm being honest.
Those shocking words from one of basketball's greatest players revealed the devastating truth about WNBA economics. When Bird was drafted in 2002, she earned less than $60,000 annually, insulting compensation for the top draft pick in professional basketball, forcing her into the degrading position of needing overseas income to subsidize her American professional career. The financial mathematics were brutal and demoralizing. After accounting for agent fees, taxes, training expenses, and basic living costs in Seattle, one of America's most expensive cities, her WNBA salary often resulted in net losses. The irony was devastating, losing money to play professional basketball at the highest level while generating revenue and excitement for a league that couldn't adequately compensate its stars. Her financial salvation came from Russia, where she earned significantly more abroad, with some players earning up to 10 times their WNBA salary in international leagues. This created a perverse reality where America's premier professional basketball league was secondary to foreign employment, a backwards system that treated its own stars as part-time employees who needed real jobs overseas to survive financially. The systemic problems persisted throughout her career, even as she became one of the league's most recognizable faces. The league's revenue of approximately $200 million annually, compared to the NBA's $10 billion, created structural constraints that no amount of individual excellence could overcome. The 10% revenue share for players ensured that even superstars faced financial limitations limitations unimaginable in men's professional sports. The most shocking moment came in 2022, when she took a dramatic pay cut to $72,141, down from $221,450 in 2021, allowing the Seattle Storm to sign other players and remain competitive. While framed as team-first leadership, this decision highlighted the WNBA's broken salary structure, where even legends must choose between personal compensation and team success during their final earning years. At age 42, Bird was earning less than rookie minimum salaries in men's professional sports, despite being one of basketball's all-time greats. The decision to help her team came at tremendous personal financial cost during what were likely her final high-earning years in professional basketball. Her retirement in 2022 marked the end of a career where one of basketball's greatest players consistently lost money playing in her home country. You'd think being the best player in the world would protect you from financial struggles, right? Think again. This next WNBA player dominated every stat sheet, but still battled with financial frustration that kept her up at night. A'ja Wilson. Dominating every statistical category while leading teams to championships should guarantee wealth beyond imagination. Instead, A'ja Wilson's career has become a study in how even the world's best female basketball player faces compensation that would be considered insulting in any other major professional sport.
Like, you find yourself, those long nights when you're thinking and it's just like, what's going on? Where am I in my life?
Those late night moments of financial frustration come from someone earning just $200,000 in 2024 despite averaging 26.9 points per game and winning MVP honors for her exceptional performance. To put this compensation in crushing perspective, NBA rookie Zachary Ryssaker earns $14.2 million annually, meaning Wilson earns in one full year what he makes in approximately 5 days of the NBA season. The systemic constraints are suffocating and seemingly impossible to overcome through individual excellence. Wilson's $200,000 salary is capped by the WNBA's team limit of $1.3 million in 2024, with individual player maximums around $250,000 regardless of performance or market value. The league's 10% revenue share for players compared to 50% in the NBA creates structural barriers that no amount of individual dominance can overcome. Her financial salvation comes primarily from endorsement deals, particularly a massive $20 million Nike contract over 6 years, along with partnerships with major brands like Ruffles and Gatorade. But this creates a perverse two-tier system where only players with sufficient star power and marketability can achieve financial security through off-court earnings, while the rest remain trapped by league salary constraints that haven't kept pace with inflation or player value. Wilson has become increasingly vocal about the injustice of WNBA compensation, demanding a $1 million salary to reflect her true market value, with supporters arguing that the upcoming $2.2 billion media deal starting in 2026 should finally enable appropriate compensation for the league's elite performers. Her leadership in the WNBA Players Association's 2024 opt-out of the collective bargaining agreement demonstrates her commitment to systemic change that would benefit all players. Wilson signed a 2-year, $400,000 extension in 2023, representing the league's maximum effort to retain its biggest star within impossible financial constraints that continue to undervalue elite performance. Despite being the best player in women's basketball, she remains dependent on external endorsements for financial security that should come from basketball excellence alone. At least A'ja Wilson has endorsement deals to save her from true poverty. But what about players with zero star power? This next WNBA player showed just how broke you could become when you fought for scraps at the bottom of the roster. Natasha Mack. Professional basketball careers built on the margins operate under constant threat of financial collapse. As an undrafted free agent bouncing between teams and fighting for roster spots, Natasha Mack's journey through the WNBA has been defined by financial instability that mirrors the experiences of countless players existing on the league's economic periphery. Beginning her professional career as an undrafted free agent from 2021, Mack initially signed with the Chicago Sky before being waived, then finding opportunities with the Phoenix Mercury in 2024 and 2025. As an undrafted player, she likely earned the WNBA minimum salary of approximately $64,154, $70,103 during the seasons when she was fortunate enough to maintain roster spots, but even these modest salaries came without guaranteed duration or security. Her role with Phoenix in 2024, averaging 15.5 minutes per game with 3.5 points, perfectly encapsulated the definition of a replacement-level player, valuable enough to justify maintaining maintaining a roster spot for specific situations, but not significant enough to command higher compensation or guaranteed playing time. This precarious position creates basketball purgatory, where players are too productive to release, but too limited to pay well. The financial pressures intensified significantly with her 2025 situation, filling in during injuries to players like Satu Sabali. Injury replacement players often work under short-term contracts or training camp deals that pay as little as $1,000, $2,000 per week, creating extreme income volatility that makes even basic financial planning nearly impossible for players already operating on minimal resources. Her experience of being waived by Chicago in 2021, then returning to professional basketball with Phoenix years later, illustrated the roster instability that defines careers for players in her marginal position. These gaps between contracts mean extended periods of zero basketball income, forcing players to find alternative employment, exhaust personal savings, or rely on family support while desperately hoping for another professional opportunity to materialize. Like most non-star players struggling with inadequate WNBA compensation, overseas opportunities became essential for any hope of financial survival. Role players can earn $10,000, $50,000 monthly in international leagues, often representing significantly more stable and lucrative income than WNBA contracts. However, this forces year-round basketball commitments with no off-season recovery, cultural and language challenges, and physical wear that can dramatically shorten already precarious careers. The league's team salary cap of $1.507 million in 2025 means that after accounting for star player salaries and veteran contracts, teams have extremely minimal resources available for bench players like Mack. After years of professional basketball across multiple teams and leagues, she remained trapped in the same financial uncertainty that could end abruptly with any roster move. You think earning minimum wage makes you broke? This next WNBA player earned so little that calling it broke would actually be generous. Her salary was basically an insult. Lucia Harris. Being a pioneer often means sacrificing everything for future generations who may never know your name. Long before the WNBA existed, before women's basketball had any meaningful financial structure, Lucia Harris earned just $3,000 for an entire season of professional basketball, a salary so impossibly low it seems fictional. During her lone professional season with the Houston Angels in the Women's Professional Basketball League during 1979 to 1980, Harris earned a reported $3,000, representing one of the lowest salaries in professional sports history for someone of her caliber. This wasn't merely underpayment, it was systematic exploitation of an athlete who had achieved everything possible in basketball: 3 college national championships at Delta State University, an Olympic silver medal in 1976, and the historic distinction of being the only woman officially drafted by an NBA team. The Women's Professional Basketball League operated under such severe financial constraints that even her $3,000 salary came with no guarantees of payment or league stability. Teams frequently folded mid-season, leaving players without income, recourse, or legal protection. The league operated with virtually no revenue, extremely limited television exposure, and attendance that often struggled to reach 1,000 fans per game, creating an environment where financial failure was inevitable rather than possible. Her decision to play only one professional season reflected both personal family priorities and the harsh economic reality that professional women's basketball offered no viable financial future. The WBL's complete collapse in 1981 left Harris, along with every other female basketball player in America, without any professional opportunities until the WNBA's formation 15 years later in 1996, representing lost earning potential that could never be recovered or compensated. The cruel irony was that European leagues already offered better compensation and more professional structure for women's basketball, but Harris chose to remain in America, supporting a struggling domestic league that ultimately failed despite her sacrifice. This decision cost her financially while contributing to a foundation that would eventually support future generations of female players who would benefit from her unpaid pioneering efforts. As a Black woman competing in the 1970s, Harris faced additional systemic barriers in sponsorship opportunities and media visibility that were completely unavailable to male athletes or even white female athletes of her era. The financial hardship extended far beyond her inadequate salary to include the complete absence of support systems that male professional athletes took for granted. No pension plans, no health insurance coverage, no guaranteed contracts, just $3,000 for a season representing the supposed pinnacle of women's professional basketball. Harris passed away in January 2022, decades removed from professional basketball, having never financially benefited from the WNBA's modest improvements that came too late for the pioneers who sacrificed their financial futures. And if you want to see the fastest way to go broke in professional basketball, this next WNBA player's story is the ultimate cautionary tale. 11 games was all it took to destroy her financial dreams. Chelsea Hopkins. 1 season, 11 games, 1.3 points per contest. Sometimes that's all it takes to understand the brutal economics of professional women's basketball. For Chelsea Hopkins, the 2017 season with the Seattle Storm became a harsh lesson in how quickly basketball dreams can transform into financial nightmares. As an undrafted free agent fighting for survival on the roster margins, Hopkins likely earned the minimum salary of approximately $41,000, $50,000, assuming she was fortunate enough to maintain her roster spot for a complete season. But the reality was much harsher for someone averaging minimal minutes and constantly fighting for playing time in a league with no room for development or patience with struggling players. The financial mathematics were devastating for an undrafted player in one of America's most expensive cities. Even if she earned the full minimum salary, after taxes, agent fees, and basic living expenses in Seattle, she was likely operating at a significant financial loss. Training camp contracts and prorated minimums for undrafted players can pay as little as $1,000, $2,000 per week, making it impossible to build any financial foundation or even cover basic living costs without external support. Her brief tenure highlighted the impossible economics facing roster bubble players. Rent in Seattle for even modest accommodations often exceeded $2,000 monthly, meaning her entire paycheck could disappear on housing alone. Transportation, food, training expenses, and basic healthcare costs made financial survival nearly impossible on the wages available to marginal WNBA players. Her undrafted status created a vicious financial cycle that proved impossible to escape. Without WNBA success and strong statistical production, overseas opportunities remained extremely limited. As elite international leagues typically recruit proven players with impressive resumes, this left her trapped between inadequate WNBA compensation and inaccessible overseas alternatives, with no clear path to financial stability through professional basketball. The brevity of her career illustrated the harsh realities facing roster bubble players in a league with severely limited opportunities. The average WNBA career lasts approximately 5 years, but for undrafted players like Hopkins, careers often end after single seasons or mid-season cuts, providing minimal time to recoup the substantial investments made in pursuing professional basketball dreams. Unlike established players who can supplement income through lucrative overseas contracts or endorsement deals, players with Hopkins' limited resume face extremely restricted opportunities beyond basketball. The absence of detailed financial information about her situation reflects how quickly players can disappear from professional basketball without achieving any meaningful financial success. After just 1 season and 11 games, Hopkins disappeared from professional basketball, another casualty of a system that promises opportunity but delivers financial hardship. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.